Hey guys, it's your least insightful Dark-Tide guy, Bareback Bolter Bill, finally back, and today I want to talk about the ugly, least bangable step-sibling of the veteran abilities, Executioner's Stance. I figured that anyone who has played the hardest difficulty for any amount of time has come to the same conclusion that I have. The veteran's shout is obscenely powerful. Nothing even comes close. It's actually pretty insane just how good it is. A near instantaneous stagger, full refresh of our toughness, overshield on top of that, shoring up allies' defenses, and coming off cooldown at a ridiculous pace. A panic button against melee pressure that not only stuns but knocks back and clears us a path if we need to reposition while also overcharging our toughness. A near guaranteed way to make space and buy time for a clutch revive even without the only in death does duty and talent. A way to overcome range pressure, especially by exploiting talents like Iron Will that seem to be custom tailored to making the most out of our topped up overcharged toughness. And even just to interrupt overhead before it flattens us or an ally. On top of all that, it only has a 30-second cooldown that can be reset by specials. It's not just the best ability on the veteran, but an easy contender for the best ability in the game. Then there's Infiltrate. Nothing wrong with invisibility. It can be used for dangerous but clutch revives, can definitely be used for run-saving rescues, and it can consistently be used for safely powering through objectives. It can also be used by the Zealot. Can be used a lot better by the Zealot. Just their capacity to recharge their invisibility so much faster and more reliably than veterans makes them better. The veterans' only choice is to use tactical awareness, something they absolutely cannot rely on, while the Zealot can outfit and craft their way toward a build that can literally be invisible more often than not. Who can essentially blow invisibility at any time for any reason, even for something as small as having the horde in front of them turn around for half a second so they can get some juicy backstabs in. Not to mention that the Zealot exclusively has the best melee weapon for capitalizing off the huge bonus damage from exiting invisibility with their amazing Thunder Hammers. Their ability giving massive one-shot damage rather than a lukewarm damage increase for a short window of time. And yet, with all that said against it, on the whole, Infiltrate is still better than Executioner's Stance. For all its faults and how much better the Zealot can take advantage of it, it's still invisibility with the same inherent advantages. On the other hand, Executioner's Stance is just damage. And not even general damage, specifically ranged weapon weak spot damage. In a game where shooting the vast majority of enemies in the head will already kill instantaneously without the buff, or with hose weapons, reduce the time to kill by an almost imperceptible amount. I suppose the increased accuracy can be helpful depending on your weapon, but certainly not enough for it to trump either of our other abilities. Even the outline it offers isn't particularly useful. Target acquisition isn't generally a difficulty in Dark-Tide, not even with the most elusive of sniper specials. The maps are linear and predictable, where melee mobs rush straight at you and the ranged enemies congregate around the same cover over and over. Even on the most expansive of final holdout events, the spawn points are so obvious that you need not even be paying attention to notice them for repeat runs. Sometimes it's even detrimental as you plug away at one of them without any hit markers, only to realize that the glowing part you're aiming at is behind cover. You might think that the outline it offers is useful for special maelstrom modifiers like Lights Out, but the problem is that it does nothing for melee enemies. Getting absolutely swarmed is the #1 danger of those dark missions, and as always, our show is a godsend for dealing with them. So when is our Executioner Stance useful? Well, let's discuss how to properly exploit it first. As mentioned, the damage comes from amping up our headshots. That means picking up a gun that can really exploit that weak spot increase. You can compare individual weapons by checking the damage breakdowns, but an easy rule of thumb is that slow las guns like heavy pistols and snipers or auto guns running conventional ammunition are going to be the best. So something like a Torrent las gun is going to be awful when compared to both its slower firing complements and its auto gun equivalent. I'd stray away from anything with a slow rate of fire because they typically can't exploit the extra damage at all as they're already one-shotting, unless you're planning on brute forcing through Crusher Carapace armor, and faster guns let you shred through more targets anyway. My personal favorite is the Columbus Mark V, but there's plenty of choice to fit your preferences. Now, I need to take a moment. I know that I've poked fun of Lizzo in my videos because the only thing that I hate more than fat people are fat shamers, but recently things have clearly gone too far. I'm sure plenty of you have already seen the headlines, but all of Lizzo's social media has gone down recently due to harassment. And while I was probably emboldening people with my jokes, I never really stopped to consider the consequences. When someone is as massive as Lizzo, it's easy to lose sight of the big picture because it's behind her, and she's fucking massive. The point is, we all have to remember that Lizzo isn't just a performer, or a fat shamer, or a 600-pound nightmare. She is multiple people. And I don't just mean her weight, I mean all the people she has employed to work for her, like the backup dancers she fat-shamed like the awful human being she is. And I truly didn't mean for our poor social media manager to get caught in the crossfire. They already had the impossible task of making Lizzo look good despite all the things that Lizzo says and does and eats, and it seems I've only made things worse by adding my own commentary to the pile. So truly, from the bottom of my heart, I'm so sorry to the social media manager who couldn't take it anymore. I wish you a speedy recovery. Just know that it's not your fault. It's Lizzo's. As for Lizzo, I don't think I could say it any better than Paul Bremer himself.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
Now for the tree. It's a pretty typical default raid setup, but I have a couple of key notes. The first is that I'd recommend picking up both of these talents, Exhilarating Takedown and Volley Adept. The first is definitely the conventional pick that allows us to consistently keep up our toughness as we hose away. The other is special for Executioner stance as it gives us a big bonus to our reload speed, which will be relevant in a moment. From there we go through some defenses to get our Shredder Grenade. I explained in a previous video my absolute love for them, but it's going to be especially relevant here. Cracks are going to be way worse, save for a random monstrosity. As for the Smoke Grenade, I understand it's been buffed after my carefully worded criticism. It's the one thing the Smoke Grenade could be considered useful for in a game and do that! Like, what the fuck? But it's a massive cost in talents just to get to that side of the tree and back, so I certainly wouldn't recommend it here. Then of course we get our ammunition aura because we are going to be absolutely dumping out bullets. And before we go into Executioner stance, I'll note that you could of course swap to Kill Zone and Catch a Breath instead if that fits the way you want to play. But for this build, we're almost entirely focused on taking down ranged enemies. That means there will often be plenty of trash mobs within 8 meters being dealt with by our allies, making those talents worthless. Then, finally, we get our Executioner stance and augment the hell out of it. Relentless is absolutely required so we can keep refreshing its duration as we hose through targets, and is also the reason we picked up that Volley Adept reload bonus earlier in the tree. Being able to power through a reload while mowing down elites and specials with our Executioner stance means that we have that much more time to nab another kill and chain another relentless combo. For the next, I personally always go for the bigger they are, which might be the worst grammatical abomination of a title I've ever encountered in this game, which is only made worse by the fact that it's right beside duty and honor, and only in death does duty end. Like, either capitalize every word in the title or Google words that don't get capitalized in titles, for fuck's sake. And just never put a space between the last word and the ellipses. Just don't do it. But yes, I always pick it up because where we're going, there's going to be a whole lot of Reapers to be putting down, and we want to be chaining Relentless off of them. That said, counterfire is a pretty great way to keep Executioner's stance chaining over and over, but my big issue with it is that our outline no longer separates the big priority targets from random range trash. It generally just turns our HUD into a sea of yellow and makes distinguishing between a random dipshit who is landing maybe 3 shots a minute and a scab gunner who is absolutely decimating our zealot all the more difficult. But I'll easily concede that picking between these two is personal preference. Lastly, there's enhanced target priority, which is a toss-up. If you want to help your allies, that's really nice of you, but there's also the chance that your allies are going to get all the last hits on your targets and ruin your ability to chain with Relentless and inadvertently blow your whole build like a bunch of assholes. I'm pretty back and forth on it myself, so it's up to you. Then it's down to the meaty range tree where we're gonna fill it out like a big fat flutist in spandex. Precision strikes? Yup. Determined? Absolutely. Fully loaded, of course. Superiority complex? Definitely. Marksman? You're goddamn right. And then fuck it, let's throw on focus. This is the Popping Heads build, so we might as well make use of the Popping Heads keystone. Then we'll modify it with tunnel vision. I'm constantly moving around so I won't touch camouflage while I could get long range assassin instead, which has nothing to do with long range or assassination, but whatever. Then there's this one. I don't even think I can say its name or I'll get cancelled like that one Disney animation.
Shanghai, Hong Kong, and Fuyang.
Don't worry, that definitely wasn't voiced by a very white person who definitely is not the classic and arguably most recognizable voice of Tigger. Otherwise, that would be very funny, but I will pick up the talent to help with any armor I encounter. Then it's over to the middle tree for the last of our talents where we power through the always useful and properly capitalized For the Emperor into tactical awareness. We'll want to use this to get our Executioner stance back off cooldown if we stumble with our relentless comboing. Then I always pick up Iron Will to help stave off range pressure and Demolition Team to replenish Shredder Grenades for making space and clearing trash. Now there's definitely plenty of room for customization here. If you're using a crit heavy single fire gun like the revolver, you'll probably want Deadshot. And if you've chosen one of the las guns, you might opt for Shock Trooper and that 5% crit boost on the other side of the tree. No matter how you do it, I'd say the least important talents in my generic setup for what we'll be dealing with are Enhanced Target Priority, Iron Will, Demolition Team, and
Fortune cookie always wrong.
So feel free to swap any of them out for what guns you want to use and how you want to play. So now we have an insanely damage heavy tree that revolves almost entirely around our gun. So what the hell are we doing with it? We're waiting for this, Maelstrom Mission Beef, Ventilation Purge, mostly ranged enemies. This is why we don't have to worry about crushers, why we don't have to worry about maulers or ragers, because just about every enemy on the map is either a ranged elite, a specialist, or trash. Unlike Lights Out or the other Ventilation Purge variant, we don't need our shout for beating back powerful melee mobs. There aren't any powerful melee mobs, except for, when the game tries to fuck you over. Meaning not only does our build specialize in the weapon best used to wipe out the vast majority of enemies we'll encounter, but it also lights them up so we can wall hack through the Ventilation Purge. It's like Executioner's Stance has been custom tailored to absolutely dominate this exact Maelstrom and no other. I'm not sure I've ever lost a game on this Maelstrom while running Executioner's Stance outside of being instantly killed because I was the unlucky second recipient of someone else's aggro demon host. It is ludicrously overtuned as long as you can consistently pop heads. It is so distinctly impressive at manhandling this Maelstrom that I will regularly get more damage than the rest of my team combined. Because we're using our wall hack to mow down every ranged elite long before any of our allies can even spot them. Even when there are trash mods coming in, you just let your allies swarm them and dodge away from their swings while picking off elite after elite approaching in the fog. Of course, with all our main threats using range attacks, we can focus entirely around toughness for our curios. Toughness exists in Darktide to mitigate range pressure, which is why our veteran already gets it in droves. It's one of the few Maelstroms where I don't even bother bringing a second wound because it's so unlikely I'll ever go down. Just load up those shields and you're set. As for your melee weapon, bring whatever you'd like. You'll probably only use it when conserving ammunition to wipe trash mobs, so a cleave heavy weapon wouldn't be a bad choice. I personally just use the combat dagger since it's good enough at mowing through trash and, most importantly, it gives me extra mobility for when I need to get somewhere fast. It's also useful for backstabbing muties when they rush by me and hide their heads behind their massive steroid-laden backs. But anything will do since nearly 100% of our work will be done with our gun in our hands. The only learning curve I can imagine here is knowing when to blow your ult. Having a game sense for what the director is doing, an idea of what kind of threats are lurking ahead before you can see them through the fog. You don't want to blow it only to find that there aren't any targets lit up and stick yourself with a 30-second cooldown. Conversely, you don't want to sit on it only to switch it on and suddenly find an army staring back at you through the mist. That said, I doubt it'll be a problem at all. I'm usually chaining Executioner's Stance so hard with the Relentless that by the time the ability ends, it's already off cooldown. The only real issue I can imagine is if you just can't land headshots. Maybe you're like using a controller or something, I don't know. With a mouse, it's piss easy to mow down the linear, predictable movements of every ranged enemy and wipe the game of more than half its danger. It's why, in my book, I put Executioner's Stance in the lauded number 2 spot of the veteran ability hierarchy. While Voice of Command seems to outperform Infiltrate in every level, Executioner's Stance has found a very specific niche where it is so fucking good that I'd go as far to say that it's broken. It trivializes the challenge to such a degree that it honestly becomes pretty boring if the Maelstrom shows up too often. Which is funny, because it took me fucking forever to find it just for the clip for this video, I swear to god. But it's nice every once in a while to jump into that Ventilation Purge and dominate everything with that heady rush of chaining together reset after reset until there's no more enemies left to headshot. And that's a bareback bolter Bill big gay guarantee! Hey guys, sorry for the delay between videos, but as you can imagine, I've been getting absolutely swarmed with sponsorship deals after my latest batch of content. Oh, and I almost forgot to mention this video was sponsored by Disney!
Oh boy, fellas, let's rock the joint!
How do you feel about such gross underrepresentation?
Me no reiki.